welcome to Your American History Personal Trainer, episode number 3. Howdy, sports fans. Welcome to episode number 3 of Your American History Personal Trainer. Today, what we're doing is we're taking up that very, very fun handout that you did. It is only 20 stops when you take the Constitutional Express from the AOC to Philly. I liked my title. I was pretty proud of that one. Articles of Confederation, of course, is the AOC, and Philly is where they decided to rip up the Articles of Confederation and created a new constitution. All right, so you had to do 20 questions. That's why it's 20 stops. First question was, how many state votes were required to pass any law with the Articles of Confederation? That was a problem, as there were so many different problems with the Articles of Confederation, and because here 9 out of the 13 states were required to pass any law in the Articles of Confederation. What was required to amend the Articles of Confederation? Whenever you want to amend a constitution, as the Articles of Confederation really was the first constitution for the United States, you want to be able to amend it, but you don't want to make it too easy. If the Constitution's too easy to amend, then you got like the situation of Germany in the 1930s. So what you want to do is that you don't want to make it too difficult to amend, because then it's this static document that can never be changed. The Articles of Confederation, what they needed is a unanimous vote. All 13 states needed to for any kind of amendment to happen. That's far too rigid. How many states were created by the Northwest Ordinance of 1787? This is question number 3. Everybody who submitted this had no problems with this question. 5 states were created by the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. And what would be forever excluded from these states? Slavery, which becomes very, very big. Soon we're going to be talking about the American Civil War. So that would be very big. Question number 5. Explain why international trade was so difficult during the AOC, the Articles of Confederation. I've gone over this more than once before. The Articles of Confederation made international trade difficult because each state had its own tariffs. Tariffs is a tax on imported goods. And if you have the state of Pennsylvania having a certain tax rate on imported goods, a certain tariff rate, and Virginia having a different rate, and New York, and all the states having different tariff rates, then it made it very, very hard for foreign countries, such as France, to come across the ocean and trade. As well, and someone pointed out in answering these questions, another difficulty would have been all the different currencies that they had. States had their own different currencies. That was a problem. Where was the Constitution written? Of course, Philadelphia. Independence Hall. Nicolas Cage was there. In what year? 1787. From May until September of 1787, they gathered together in Philadelphia. And I think I've told you this before, I think. They did not want the people to know that they were redoing the Constitution, and so what they did is they met in secret. They got big, heavy velvet drapes. They closed the drapes. They did not let anybody know what was going on because the people were worried. Well, actually, not the people. These rich white guys that were there, they were worried that the people would hear that, hey, someone's changing the government and we don't get to have a say in this. And so they figured that there might be a revolt outside if the people inside knew what was going on. How many men met at the Constitutional Convention? 55. That's the answer to question number 8. Describe these men. Generally, the people who have power in society are old white men. But these men weren't really old. They were certainly white men. They were wealthy. And half of them went to college, as you read in your research. 40% of them had served in the war. They were wealthy white men who desired a stronger national government. Remember, they had a strong national government when they're under the power of the British. But then the Americans decided, okay, we want to be so anti-British. And so when they made the Articles of Confederation, it was very, very different. So anti-British. And because it was so anti-British, what they made is a very, very weak national government. Now here's their plan to go back and realize, okay, weak is terrible for national government. Let's do something a whole lot stronger. So what should they do? Take a look at questions 10 and 11. they came up with two ideas. First, it was called the Virginia Plan, was their first idea. Obviously, that came from delegates representing the most populous state at that time, the state of Virginia, which is also home to something like 6 of the first 7 presidents of the United States came from that most populous state called Virginia. Virginia, well, everybody wrote in their answers that it was a 2-house legislature, but that's not the big point. The big point is Virginia recognized that a government should be represented by its population, and so they wanted representation by population, where each state had a say in proportion to the number of people they had in their state. Rep by pop is the Virginia Plan, where a state's voice is equal to the number of people in it. New Jersey had a different plan. This is the answer to question number 11, and define the New Jersey plan. They like what the Articles of Confederation had, where each state got 1 vote. You got 13 states, 13 votes. It's that easy in the New Jersey plan. Question number 12, I made a mistake. I should not have made question number 12 define the 3/5 compromise. That comes later. Question number 12 should have been, and this is very, very important, question number 12 should have been describe the Great Compromise. And the Great Compromise is the compromise between the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. New Virginia wanted representation by population, and so the Great Compromise said, okay, we'll have 1 house that will be representation by population, and they called that the House of Representatives, 438 members. New Jersey wanted each state has 1 vote, so the Great Compromise, they gave each state 2 votes, and they made them in the Senate. So they have 50 states in the United States. The Senate gives 2 votes, 2 senators can represent each and every state, so there were exactly 100 senators in the Senate, and we've got 438 members in the House of Representatives, and together now that makes Congress. Those are the 2 houses of Congress: House of Representatives, the Virginia plan, and the Senate is the New Jersey plan. Now, the real question number 12 here is to find the 3/5 compromise. What argument did it settle? The 3/5 compromise is a way to determine the population of a state. If Virginia, which is a slave state, had lots and lots of white people and lots of slaves, does that mean that their state is massive? So what do? Well, they came up with this compromise. They said, okay, we'll say that all white people count 1 for 1, and all other persons, they never say the word slaves, all other persons, they'll count for 3/5 of a person. And so this way now they know how to count the entire population of a state, which is important in the House of Representatives, of course, the one that currently has 438 members. All right, list the 3 branches of government is question number 13. The executive branch, Trump's in charge of that one right now. The legislative branch, which of course is Congress. Congress is made up of the 2 houses, House of Representatives and the Senate. And the judicial branch, which is all of the court system and the laws. Question number 14. State the principle or term that kept each of these branches from becoming too powerful. Checks and balances. If the say a Supreme Court judge dies, the president has to appoint a new Supreme Court judge, but he needs congressional approval for his appointment. So it is checks and balances, where each of the 3 branches has power over the other one. You can't do something unless some of the other branches agree. Question number 15. How many states were required to ratify the Constitution? So now we're talking about the new Constitution that they created, and they said, okay, we got 13 states. As soon as we have 9 of them ratify it, it's a Constitution for all 13. 16. What were the purposes? What was the purpose of the Federalist Papers? The Federalist Papers were done, it was written, a lot of essays written by Alexander Hamilton and other people to convince the people that federal government and a strong federal government is a good thing. Before, of course, they said Britain was bad because they had a strong federal government. Now we got the Articles of Confederation. That was bad because it was such a weak federal government. We want to go back to a strong federal government. A strong national government is necessary and not a threat to people's liberty. That was the purpose of the Federalist Papers. Who wrote them? As I said, as Alexander Hamilton, people that believed in a strong national government. Number 18. Who were the Anti-Federalists? Anti-Federalists, John Winthrop, not the one we know about from Massachusetts, a different guy, and Thomas Jefferson. He was an Anti-Federalist, and this begins the feud between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, a feud that goes on for a long, long time. And Thomas Jefferson, he prides himself on being an agrarian person, a farmer, and he wants an agrarian nation, and he does not see the need for a strong national government. Question number 19. How old is the American Constitution? Well, it was created in 1787, but it's not fully ratified till 1789. Does that make it 233 years old or 231 years old? I took either answer. And how old is the Canadian Constitution? Well, we were born in 1867, eh? So our Constitution is coming up on 153 years old. And while I have your attention, let me tell you some announcements. Do I want to tell you some announcements? No, I'll tell you some announcements later. So this concludes Your American History Personal Trainer episode number 3. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.